get started. Okay. So do you want to start with just like an introduction?
Sure. So, hi guys, I'm Sarah. I actually know Emily because I coach a club volleyball team in the area. So I'm not just an engineer. I have a little fun with my life too. I went to Missouri S&T back between 2008 and 2012. I majored in civil engineering. And straight out of school, I actually didn't do civil engineering. I actually went into like the business side of software development for a little bit. And then ended up in civil engineering, which I'm sure I'll explain more about as you guys have questions. But did civil engineering for a few years, and then I actually taught high school for a few years. So took a 3-year hiatus and taught both physics and pre-calculus. And then back to civil engineering because I love it. And this is where I am now.
All right, so my name is Inner Kamredi, and you just call me ARC, and I'm a senior in Marquette High School. I'm also planning on going to S&T next year. So yeah, that's me.
My name is Ashish Dhanalkota. I'm a senior this year. I'm going into engineering, but I'm not sure which college I'll go to. We'll see what happens.
I'm Emily. I'm a junior, and I don't know yet. We'll see. That's an but yeah, and then I don't know if Shrishti's able to talk. She said she was a little busy right now, but she's also a junior, and at the moment, I think she's planning on going into engineering too, but doesn't know what yet.
Awesome.
So then I think our first question was just, so can you describe your job and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually, once it comes up, can y'all see the Google map? Yep, okay, good. This is a site in Crestwood, Missouri. I don't know if you're super familiar with it, but we're kind of at Watson Road and then Sappington. And so I specifically do site development, which is where you take an undeveloped site, or it can be one that's previously developed, and you either redo it to put something new on it, or you just completely, in this case, it's a bunch of dirt. Let's see if I can get the actual street view so you can see how beautiful what we're dealing with right now is. Did you drop the little man? No, he won't drop. There we go. Drop the little man on the site. So you can kind of see danger. Don't worry, I went out there without my hard hat the other day, but there's not actually danger anymore. So if you drive by the site, feel free to look at it. But essentially what my portion of the job is I will get a survey from surveyors who go out and they take all the actual measurements, lengths of road, where the grass and limits of concrete are. They'll take elevations and give us kind of a 3D model of what's out there. And then my portion of the job is to draw up essentially what new is going on this site. And so that would include things like where can the building go? Where can the parking lot go? Where do all the utilities go? And then we'll also do like utility coordination with the city. So anything that's underground that you can't actually see, we coordinate and design all of that. Things like when it rains, that's a big portion of what we do. Where does all this rainwater go? So behind this site, there's actually a huge creek, which is what all those trees are in the background. And so are we gonna flood the creek by the development that we're doing? And so we'll run lots of calculations to show that, hey, either what we're doing isn't gonna impact that creek, or here's how we're gonna manage that by either putting the water underground to store it for a while, or to make sure that we increase the creek's capacity to be able to intake it. So lots of math, lots of modeling. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in like AutoCAD or I'm trying to think of the other one, SolidWorks. That's what my husband was a mechanical engineer. So I think he was more familiar with that program, but do a lot of work in those modeling softwares. And then we actually, can y'all see if I change the tab? Can y'all see these pictures now? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are kind of my outputs of what I do on the day-to-day of, hey, here's where the parking is, which seems super lame, but it's very important, guys. They're actually, depending on the different municipalities we work within St. Louis, the cities have different requirements for how big the spaces have to be, how many there have to be, depending on what the use of the site is. So we do all that research for the client and then work out with the client kind of what they want, what the city requires, and we find a happy medium there to get what they need on the piece of property that they purchase. So there's that. And then I did pull up, or I tried to find something that would like show y'all Civil 3D in case you'd never used it. But it's just a design program where you can go in and draw everything perfectly to scale. The information we get from our surveyor comes in this program. So we can kind of design on top of what's actually there. And it's just a really fun tool. If you go into engineering at all, I'm sure you'll have some exposure to it when y'all end up in college. So that's kind of an overview. If y'all have questions, I'm happy to give more detail, but.
Yeah. So how often do you actually go on site in order to like, do your job?
Yeah. So it can vary project to project. With this project, we've been out on site once. We just started this project about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We went out, we almost always do a preliminary walk, just, hey, here's what it looks like. We take pictures to make sure that we don't have to go out every day to look at it. But then kind of as different design considerations come up, we'll go back out on the site. I don't do any of the actual like on site while they're building, but we will go out occasionally as they are going through the building process just to make sure, hey, is what they're building in the field what we put on our plans. And then obviously at the end of the project, we'll do that as well, just to be sure, like I'll be the one to sign these plans and say, hey, this is what you guys should build. So just to make sure that they actually built that and no one comes after me and tries to say like, you designed something poorly. So we go out to make sure that what was built was what we thought was getting built for sure.
So how do you kind of like decide on civil engineering?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I didn't even want to be an engineer at first. It was a very interesting, in the middle of high school, it was like my junior year, I was gonna be a teacher and I was gonna be happy with that. But had a bunch of my math and science teachers being like, you are really good at this stuff, you should consider this engineering thing. So I actually visited S&T back in like the summer between my junior and senior year. I did an engineering camp there. And one of the great things, not pitching S&T or anything, but one of the great things about S&T is they have almost 20 plus types of engineering. And so that was one of the things that attracted me there was I was like, I don't know which one of these I want to do. And so ended up there and got to kind of explore it my first semester and visit the different departments. And sorry about that. Job always calls, y'all. But once I was there and got to explore the different types of civil engineering or the different types of engineering, civil really stuck out to me actually because of the structural component. And so I thought when I went into civil engineering that I was going to be doing like bridge design and building these massive structures. But it was kind of cool that as I got into my civil classes, I was able to take things that were more specific and actually ended up really liking kind of the things that more pertain to this utility and site development that I do. So it was really, once I got to school, I knew kind of I wanted to do something a little more technical in the engineering realm. But once I got to school and got to start exploring in more depth what each of the fields looked like, it was just kind of which application did I like the best? And this is kind of where I landed.
So what was the transition between college and job? Like, was there some things you had to learn that you didn't get taught in college?
I would say actually that I think Rolla really prepared me well. It was a heavy course load. So it was a good bridge between like high school where I felt like looking back, I didn't actually have that much responsibility, even though I thought I did. And then the job world where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to pay my own bills and go to work every day and no one wakes me up. So I think college was actually really a good transition period to learn all those things. But I will say when you do get into your job, it is a challenge just because you are 100% responsible for yourself. No one's checking in on you. There's no accountability of, oh, my report card wasn't great and my parents wanted to see it still in college, right? Like your job's your job and nobody's really calling your mom telling you if it's not going well. So it wasn't, I would say I didn't like struggle with it personally, but it definitely was a transition to learn how to be a grown-up, an adult.
So what was your college experience like in STEM and like specifically at S&T?
Yeah, it was hard. So I will say, if y'all are considering going into a STEM field, it is a lot of work. And there's kind of, I won't say a joke, but there's a joke around campus at S&T in particular that, hey, your first semester or even your first year, there's going to be some classes there that are going to kind of make or break you and let you know if this is the way that you should be going. And I had friends my first semester there that didn't continue on after the first semester, or some that didn't continue on after the first year or year and a half. But if you can kind of make it through those core classes, they set a really good foundation. And then as you progress in your kind of STEM career and your STEM knowledge learning, it gets a lot more in depth and into the detailed things that you want to apply that knowledge to, right? So freshman, sophomore year, you're really getting that base math, science. You got some humanities you're taking, but it's very heavy math and science load. And then as you get into those application courses, at least for me, it was just very interesting to see, hey, how am I going to take these like skills now and apply them to real world type applications. It was also, I think college was a great opportunity to really get involved. I would highly recommend, if y'all go into the STEM field, to get involved in organizations that really apply what you're learning. And so I know, again, it sounds like S&T commercial over here, but S&T just had so many student organizations that you could join. We had just in like the civil, there was like a bridge designing team, there was a solar house team, there was a concrete canoe team. And you could just, I mean, they're, as soon as freshmen come in, they're like, hey, come visit my club, come visit my club. And it's a way to start applying from day one what you're going to be doing 4 years down the road. So I would highly recommend getting that kind of experience, not just getting stuck in your classes and doing homework all day, because you'll hate your life if you do that. So.
Was there anything specific that you got involved in, or anything outside of school, like a job, internship, that helped you to solidify your decision to go into civil engineering?
Yeah, so I had an internship when was that? I guess it was between my junior and senior year. I had an internship with AT&T actually, but it was with their like corporate real estate department, which is actually very similar to the work I do now. And so it was a portion of AT&T that would acquire sites and then kind of build AT&T facilities on it, which is almost exactly what I do now, just on the development side versus the private side of being the owner. And so that internship that I had that summer, I did really enjoy it. It was a lot of project management, which is something that I also get to do in my job now, which is, hey, I was working with the developer then, now I work with the private owners, but working through budgeting and scheduling and how does this project actually come to fruition, and not always getting bogged down in the actual site details. So that was something that definitely solidified what I was doing and what I like doing.
Were there any like programs that you found really useful? So I know, as in, were there things that you learn in college that you don't necessarily use but are useful, I guess? That kind of makes sense.
I was gonna say, can you give me a for example of something you might have on the top of your mind?
Like, I don't know, like learning a certain program. So like Autodesk Inventor or something like that.
Sure.
that you found that you learned that you don't use as much but was useful in college.
Yeah.
You know?
Specifically computer program wise, this may sound lame, but get to know Excel. It should be your best friend. It's not like, there's nothing really in my job that would inherently need Excel, but it has so many functions if you learn it that it's super useful. And the more familiar you are with it, the more you can like nerd out with it and use it for everything, even when you don't need to. So I would say Excel, and that wasn't even something that I particularly like took a class on in college or anything. It was just something we had to use on certain projects and on assignments. And then I did get exposure to a lot of the 3D modeling in my classes at Rolla, and those have been helpful, though I will say most of the classes, or at least most of the classes I took at Rolla, I won't speak for y'all wherever y'all go, but we focused more on like the actual fundamentals of how do how do the actual design pieces and components work. So I didn't do a ton of computer program stuff while I was in class or in my courses. It was more so just learn the fundamentals behind it and kind of the design components. And then later on the job, I got to learn all those fun things. So does that answer your question? If not, you can totally tell me it didn't.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
So what was it like switching between like many different jobs, kind of like throughout the STEM field, I guess?
Yeah, it was fun. I'm a learner and I like to do new things. So for me, I think that was one reason why it worked. Like I said, I did kind of a little pseudo coding essentially in my first job, which was a lot of Excel, first of all. And then it was a lot of like coding language and just learning how to speak logically, which is kind of funny, but that was something like being logical is part of being an engineer. So that was kind of easy. But then the transition into actually having to do a little more math heavy design work, that was interesting, but again, fun. Like I feel like if you go into the STEM field, you're probably a learner. And so the transition for me wasn't hard just because I like to do the learning. I will say, I think the hardest part of each of those transitions was like having to learn to work with a new team. And so I think that's something that college will really prepare you for, is like, you kind of will bounce around and have this project team and this project team and these people in this class. And you're like, oh, I'll never have to do this in the real world. But depending on the life choices you make, you might have to. So that would be the one thing that I think, looking back, if there would have been something that would have kept me in any one job longer, it would have been like, hey, you're going to have to learn to work with a whole new group of people and kind of figure out how they function and how their business functions and all of that, if that makes sense.
So you also talked about working with other people. So when you did, so I think in senior year of college, I think you do like a design project. So what was the process of doing that? Like, what was your experience with that?
Yeah, I actually really loved my team, luckily. So my role in that was, I was actually the PM. So I got to do kind of the coordination for our team. I ended up having to do a lot of report writing, which was not my favorite thing. So I don't really know why I volunteered to do it, but it was interesting because it definitely, I knew I wanted to get into project management, which is what I do now. And so I guess it kind of helped me prepare for that, but it was one of those frustrating things, and I'm sure you guys deal with this in high school, of I was the person tracking down each component of our project, right? So, hey, Tim, you haven't turned your stuff in. Like, I was the one who was responsible for that. And it was the way our senior design was set up. Like, it was my responsibility. Like, it wasn't going to be the teacher holding them accountable. Like, they had their piece that they were accountable for, but then also as a team, like, we were accountable for finishing the project. So for my personal role, that was kind of the challenge I encountered, was having to coordinate with, I think there was 8 or 9 of us on the team. And so just making sure everybody was hitting their deadlines and making sure everybody had the resources they needed to do it, and not just assuming they were going to go out and do it themselves. And then it was kind of cool. So at least at Raleigh, the senior design for civil was very similar to what I do now. So again, it was a really great experience to get hands-on exactly what I'm doing now. Like, I got to do that my senior year. And they even brought in like people from the outside world, from the corporate world, to come like watch us do our presentations and evaluate our design. And so that was just really enlightening to get to see that firsthand before we were out in the field, and where it kind of mattered a little bit more. So.
Is there a reason you picked like S&T over other engineering schools?
That's a great question. So I visited a few schools, and one of the big appeals to me for S&T was the size of it. And so just the fact that it wasn't as big as some of the others. So I'm from Dallas, Texas. And so I was looking at like UT and A&M and Texas Tech down there, which are relatively large schools, similar to probably the size of Mizzou. And just being on campus, I was like, I'm going to get lost here, and not like physically lost, because I am bad at directions sometimes, but that wasn't what I was worried about. I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to like find my place here and feel like comfortable on campus and feel like I can kind of like be a part of the campus. But when I visited Raleigh for that engineering camp, I instantly like we had a connection like with professors at the camp who then like followed up personally to say, hey, are you like actually coming? And just that like small personal interaction is something that I was like, I don't think I'm going to get this on a campus of, 20,000 versus at Raleigh, it's under 10,000 graduate and undergraduate students. So it was a much more personal feel. And the amount of like student organizations in comparison with that, like you're constantly crossing paths with the same people who are like-minded with you, who are wanting to like learn the same things as you. So it's just kind of this, my husband hates the word, but it's like this synergy that happens where like everyone around you's kind of headed in the same direction and has the same goals, and it just helps kind of propel you forward in your career. So that was ultimately why I decided, just because it was such a good fit. I do have friends, for the record, I do have friends who went to bigger schools and loved it and have very successful careers, but it's definitely got to be something that you feel comfortable with and you feel like you can like thrive in. So.
And then I think our last question was just, do you have any advice for kids who want to get into civil engineering or just STEM in specific?
Yeah, I would say one, explore while you're in high school. So I am like forever grateful that my parents told me to go to this engineering camp because I didn't, like I said, I didn't even really know what engineering was until I went. So explore now while you have the chance. And then once you get to college, like don't be afraid to change your mind, whether it's within the STEM field or if you get there and you hate it, like don't be afraid to change majors and get out of it. Just like wherever you like land post college, like that's gonna be the rest of your life. So no pressure or anything, but do the exploring now and make decisions as they kind of come to you. But don't be afraid to kind of change mid path and alter your course. And yeah, go into life kind of fearless. And like I took 3 years off and went to teach because I thought that was a good idea and it wasn't. And so like my advice would just, yeah, be fearless and don't be scared to try new things and just explore all your options.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if you two had
Yeah.
any questions. That's all I had like written down.
I think that covers my stuff.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. This was fun. I will also offer I have tons of engineering friends because I'm a nerd like that. It's all I hang out with. So if you guys are ever interested in other engineering fields, let me know and I can get you guys contact info for them. So
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
yeah, I'll get it to Emily, and if you guys are interested, you're welcome to
Yeah.
reach out.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate it. See you later.
Bye.